много интересных тем, причем они довольно глубоко подготовленные спикерами, поэтому не останавливаемся в рабочем режиме. В общем, сегодня проведем почти 2 часа. Встану в кадр. У нас сегодня параллельно идет стрим, поэтому всем привет, кто смотрит этот стрим. Всем, кто будет задавать сегодня вопросы, настоятельно рекомендую говорить в микрофон, чтобы вас было слышно. Я буду помогать, я промодерирую сегодняшнее мероприятие. 2 слова о нашем коворкинге. Это конгворкинг. Коворкинг, созданный вот тем вот конгом. Это NFT-обезьяна. Мы надеемся на то, что за этот год мы смогли создать одно из самых классных, теплых комьюнити в Батуми, которая интересуется темой IT. Все наши резиденты так или иначе связаны с этой темой. Мы надеемся видеть вас среди наших резидентов. Мы часто приглашаем наших резидентов в качестве спикеров. И мы очень гордимся тем, что у нас получилось создать на постоянной основе такие классные ивенты, как сегодняшний Meetup. В общем, будьте нашими спикерами. Если хотите ими стать, обязательно обращайтесь ко мне лично. Все мои контакты можно найти в наших соцсетях. Можно найти нас по тегу Kongworking и в Инстаграме, и в Телеграме, и в Фейсбуке, везде. Вот. Сегодня я буду помогать, перенося микрофон. Сегодня главные у нас ребята уже на сцене, и Ayaz один из них, это мейнтейнер компании в Юпитере. В общем, у него сегодня довольно сложная тема.
Очень простая.
CI/CD с GitHub. В общем, я думаю, конечно, ты сам лучше расскажешь. У тебя 30 минут, я тебя остановлю когда-нибудь.
Отлично, сейчас появится видосик, я вроде уже шарю. И на английском, правильно?
И лучше, да.
Отлично.
Ну, вообще, на самом деле, здесь есть те, кто сегодня не понимают по-русски. Don't you have somebody who don't understand Russian? Okay, so everybody understands Russian. So maybe я просто не знаю, может быть, в стриме кто-то смотрит и не понимает, но я так понимаю, что все, кто здесь сегодня собрались, отлично понимают по-русски.
Кому как комфортнее. Комфорт. Okay, let's start in English. Today I will talk to you about setting up CI/CD using GitHub Actions, why you should have CI/CD system, why you should use GitHub Actions. So here is a brief overview of my talk. I will talk for 10 seconds about myself. I will tell you why do you need CI/CD system at all, why would you prefer GitHub Actions over other CI systems like Jenkins and so on. I will show you first a basic example, how you can have your workflow in a repository, and then we will deal with what is like an event, what is a workflow, a job, an action. Maybe we will talk about secrets, and then we will have some summary. Okay, let's start. I don't have much time left. My name is Ayaz Salikhov, and I've been a contributor for one of the, I think, coolest open source projects called Jupyter. So if you know something about machine learning, then chances are you're using Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab, and you're probably developing something in Docker images and deploying something in Docker images, and I maintain a project which handles lots of Docker images for Jupyter project. I was also working for a high-frequency trading company. I coded mostly in C++, so if you have any questions about C++ or Jupyter, feel free to reach me after this talk, and we will discuss later. Okay, so let's talk about CI/CD. Why would you even want to have CI/CD for your system? Like, first of all, I truly believe that you have a CI system not just for your work project, but also for your pet projects as well. So first thing it gives to you as a developer is an enhanced testing. What do I mean? Like, you only have one machine, maybe several virtual machines. They each have only one operating system, one set of software which is installed, and you want to be able to test your code in many operating systems simultaneously, maybe run them with sanitizers, or maybe run some tools and do it on each and every commit. And if you're able to do so, it will improve your performance greatly, because you will be able to notice the errors earlier. So whenever someone pushes some code which doesn't pass the test, you will receive like a notification and an email telling like this commit broke our repository, please fix it. Obviously, it enables better collaboration, because if you have many developers working on a project, it's almost impossible to collaborate if you don't have CI, because you don't know if someone else's branch commit broke your code, or was it you who broke the code. Obviously, you will have a faster issue resolution if you have a notification that this exact commit broke your code. You can just go take a look at the commit, and you will see like the content of the commit. It's not gonna be like, wow, 1 week ago it worked and today it doesn't. So it's not a nice situation to have. If you don't have a CI, you will definitely have a situation where it worked like a year ago and it doesn't work today, and you don't know why. Okay, so CI and CD, mostly CD, helps you with risk mitigation and security, because you can roll out your releases quickly. So if you have a new release and you have lots of machines where you want to publish this release, or maybe you don't like the release, then you can roll back it quickly. So it also helps. And there is a story how Knight Capital lost around $440 million in 45 minutes. And one of the reasons they did this was because they didn't have like any procedure, any CD to deploy their software. So they did lots of things manually, and if they had such a system, they wouldn't have such a big loss, and it almost like destroyed the company. So it was more than their equity at the time. So okay, so why would you use GitHub Actions? Let's switch to GitHub Actions. First of all, if you already host your code on GitHub, you will have like a beautiful integration where you don't need to go to another website, where everything is in the same interface UI you're used to. GitHub is quite reliable in my experience, so they don't have lots of outages like some other platforms do. And the GitHub Actions, they also have a rich ecosystem, so people are able to write workflows and actions, but not only just write them, but to easily read them and to share them. And GitHub Actions is quite flexible in terms of platforms, operating systems. They do not have like, maybe you're gonna be in a trouble if you're developing something under like some exotic platform, but if you're only like coding for Windows, macOS, Linux, and Arch64 Linux, you're gonna be fine. So you can run your code as well. And one of the benefits of having GitHub workflows, GitHub CI/CD system, is making your workflow. You actually code a file in your repository, and that's it. You don't have to do any setup, so you don't have to run your own virtual machines. You don't have to you don't have to pay for anything if you don't use lots of computing power. There is a free tier. So, and you can also, if you want to, you can run your own runners. So you can, if you want to, you can use your own virtual machines or your own just local machines and make them work beautifully with GitHub. It's also possible. Okay, so as I told, the main features are being able to run using macOS, Linux, and Windows, and by default they have Ubuntu Linux, but you can use any distro. There is a secret storage. It means that if you have a pipeline, if you have a workflow where you need to, for example, store some API key or some login and password, you can store it directly in GitHub, and you can use them in your workflow and pass them, and the logs will be filtered, so there will be no mention all these API keys and passwords. The format for storing workflows is quite easy. It's just a simple YAML file without anything else. So basically a workflow is most of the time it's a single YAML file, and we will, don't worry, we will see examples later. GitHub also supports matrix builds. So if you want to run some pipeline for different operating system, or I don't know, different node versions, you can say that I want this pipeline run for these combinations of operating system and node version, and we will also see this later, and it will be run as in parallel, which is also nice. And actions are small, so there is like a small confusion between GitHub Actions and like actions in GitHub Actions. So the second one is like a small composable pieces of code. For example, to check out your repository, to log into Docker Hub or something like that, which you can reuse easily. Okay, and also if you don't like web UI, you can always use GitHub CLI to run your workflows. And let's see how it works. Yeah, first of all, there is an event. This event triggers the workflow. What is an event? An event is actually anything that could happen in your repository. So it's like an internal event. For example, someone created an issue, closed an issue, added a comment in an issue, or created a pull request, more common ones, pushed something to some particular branch. There are also external events, and GitHub allows you to call your workflows from the outside of your repository. After that, the workflow is triggered. In each workflow, you have a set of jobs. So in this case, we have a workflow with 2 jobs, and each of them has 3 steps. And these steps are called actions as well. Okay, and each of these jobs is run using runner. It's either GitHub provided runner or your self-hosted runner. So let's see an example. Finally, we're here. We can see an example. So this example, you can use QR code to maybe to see the file. I created a GitHub repo where you can see all the examples from this talk. So let's see what this thing does. So there is like a name of this workflow. As I told, this workflow is stored as a file. It's stored in GitHub workflows directory. I just called it docker.yaml because it makes sense. So this workflow, it builds a Docker image. So what do we need to do to build a Docker image? We check out the repository. There is a special GitHub action for that. And then we called the build image for this repository. There is a job which is called build, and it runs on Ubuntu latest operating system. Quite simple. I think everyone, if you have never ever seen GitHub Actions, you can still understand what's going on here. So on each and every like pull request, you will run this job where you build a Docker image, and that's it. So it's really simple. Okay, so after that, you will have an action step in your GitHub repository where you have the list of your all workflows, if you click on some workflow, you will see all the runs for this workflow. So third time is a charm. So yeah, and this is how one run looks like. There is a set of steps which are run in this particular job. So the job was called build. We first set up a job. It's like an automatic thing. Then we check out the repository. Then we built an image. I also added a few more, like login and push image. To make it like more production-like, I would say. So these are types of GitHub action events. There are like 36 of them. So when I told like you can react on everything that happens inside your repository, that is why. So if someone creates an issue in your repository, there is like an issues event, and you can subscribe in your workflow to this like issues event, and you will run workflow when someone changes or opens an issue. There are a few of them which are really useful for most of the developers, like pull request, push, release, schedule, workflow call, and workflow dispatch. So we will get to them later. There is also a funny one, which is called Golem. So everything else is like called normally. So you just read the name and you get understanding what's going on. But the Golem one is like, what the hell is Golem in this context? Yeah, this is how GitHub events look like. Maybe that's why it's called Golem. But actually, Golem is like a wiki Git project. And if you want to store your documentation as a Git repository, then you can use this project. That's why it's called Golem, and it's also used in GitHub itself, as far as I remember. So this is how events look like. One of the simplest one is like workflow dispatch. It allows you to run your workflow from the web UI, so you will get a button run this workflow. There is a schedule. Schedule receives a POSIX cron syntax schedule. So if you want something you want to run like maybe daily, twice a day, no matter how often, you can like list these jobs, list your like cron schedule, and then you will be able to run this automatically. And we can see an example in jobs. You can also so whenever you have some event, you also have an information about this event inside your jobs. So for example, we can see here like we say that we don't run this step if this event schedule was like the first one. We only run this statement for the second one. So whenever you're running some job and you have some trigger, you also have an information about this trigger in a job. So you might not want to do something in like your main branch, but you want to do it like in your other branches, or vice versa. You might want to do something in your main branch, and GitHub allows you to run these if statements in your steps, in your jobs, and so filter out situations where you don't want to run this step or workflow. Okay, so there is a more like useful one. I think almost every project has this one. It's called an event which pull request. So it receives a list of paths. So whenever someone creates or changes a pull request and it like modifies or touches or creates or deletes the files listed in the paths, then you will run this workflow. If, for example, why is this useful? For example, you have like your code and you also have like docs subdirectory. You probably don't want to run your code when you only change the docs subdirectory. That's why you can say that I don't care about docs, but if something else changes, then please run this workflow. And there is like path ignore property, so it's like vice versa to path. You can only use one of these two, either path or path ignore. And there is a similar thing with branches. So there is branches and branches ignore, and this is the base branch where you want to have a pull request. So for example, if someone wants to have a pull request for the branch you do not even support anymore, you can say that I don't support this branch, I will not run this workflow. And there is a push event. So this event is run for all the branches and all the tags listed, for all the commits which change at least one file in the paths list. Okay, I think that's quite easy. So this is just a reminder of what a workflow is. A workflow, there is an event. It creates several jobs. Each job is run on a runner, and workflow is just a YAML file in this like .github workflows directory. It's an automated way of running some process. And there is obviously some like quite a big document which describes all the syntax, but most of the time you only need like 5% of this documentation. That's why this talk exists. Okay, so this is like another example of workflows. In the green box you can see the events which trigger this workflow. In one workflow you can specify many events, not just one. So in this case you will run this workflow on any pull request or on any push to the main branch, or if you run this workflow from the web UI, there are also some additional properties like permissions and concurrency. So I will just briefly tell you that if you want to control the permissions of your workflow, it's quite granular. So you can allow workflow to maybe read the issues or not read the issues, or maybe even write to the issues in your repository. And so on. So basically, there is a long list of permissions which you can choose to either approve or deny for a workflow. And concurrency section allows you to save some resources. If you don't want several workflows running simultaneously, you have a concurrency group, and you will only have one workflow which is run under this concurrency group. And jobs, as I told, like in this case, there is only one job, and it runs pre-commit hooks. So we can see all the steps here. First, we check out the repository, then we apply an action called setup Python, and it will install Python inside your runner, and then we install pre-commit tool, and then we just basically run this pre-commit tool. That's quite easy, I suppose. Okay, so let's discuss jobs. So jobs are actually the things which do like some computation, and inside this computation you have many steps. You have at least one job in a workflow, otherwise it doesn't make sense to have this workflow. So each step can be one of two like quite distinct things. One of them is a run command, as you see here, and we just run npm install command. And the second one is we call some action. In this case, we can call an action called actions setup node, and it will set up node with given node version in our virtual environment. So quite a cool thing that you don't need to worry about like cleaning up after your workflow is run, because first of all, GitHub always like runs a new virtual machine for you if you use GitHub Actions, so you don't need to worry about cleanup. And second, these actions, they also actually clean up after themselves, which is nice. You can also have several run commands in one statement. Like in this example, you can run several echo commands. This can be any commands which are supported by your runner. Okay, you can have multiple jobs in one workflow as well, and they can have dependencies on each other. To say that you have a dependency, you just use the needs keyword, and you say, in this case, job 2 is dependent on job 1, and job 3, it actually it needs both job 1 and job 2, but it will run no matter of the success of the first two jobs. So job 2 will only run if the first job is successful, but job 3 will run after job 1 and job 2, but no matter if they succeeded or not. For example, if you want to maybe send a Slack message if the job was successful or not, you can, if the workflow was successful or not, you can have like a separate job which will run no matter how the previous jobs like exited, and you will just send a message like this workflow passed or this workflow failed. So you can also pass the data between jobs. As I told, each job is a new virtual machine. That's why when you created some file on a first job, in the first job, so in the first runner, you won't have it automatically in the second runner, because it's like a completely new virtual machine. That's why to pass the data, you will use the action called actions upload artifact, and you can upload a directory, you can upload a file. You give this file a name. This file will also available in the web UI as soon as your job finishes, and you can have a download job which will use this artifact. So this is important to have the same name as the name we uploaded this artifact with. So I think it looks quite easy. So at least it gives you quite a good separation when you want, for example, to have like a build pipeline and a test pipeline. You can build something in one job, you will get your binary, and then you can test this binary in multiple environments. And to have the same binary tested in multiple environments, you just like build this binary, upload it. You don't need to care about where it's stored. It's stored by GitHub somewhere automatically. There is like a retention days policy. You just say the number of days you want this artifact to be stored, and then in other jobs you can download this artifact and do some later steps. So this is well, I hope that I like convinced you why GitHub Actions are quite cool. Okay, and another thing you can pass between jobs is not just the data, not just the file, but if you want to pass some like key value storage, if you want to pass basically some strings or some output, you can do it this way. So you just have to give an ID to your step, and then you can use a special variable called GitHub output, and you basically put a key equals value format to this file, and then this file is read by GitHub Actions and it is saved, and you can then tell that my whole job, like in this case produce output, it has an output called my important output, and it will take it from the specified step. So it will go to the step 1 outputs, and it will take a look, and there will be like a value called hello, and you can later consume this in another job. You don't need to remember all the syntax. You basically just copy paste this piece of code, change the name of jobs if you want to, change the name of output variables if like to the ones you like more, and it's gonna work just fine. And then you just use this output in another job. So the last thing I would like to talk to you about is matrices. So I promised you can run your workflow in many operating systems, in many environments. In this example, we have an environment. So we have like we have a Node version and OS, and we try to make our code run for several operating systems, several Node versions, and to do that we use a special strategy, semicolon matrix, semicolon syntax inside a job called build. So this particular job will run 6 times. Why 6? Because 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. It's like a Cartesian product. And then we include one more configuration. You can manually include configurations to this Cartesian product of Node version and operating system. And then you can exclude some configurations you don't like. Usually you have like quite a long list of versions of software. If you have like more things you want to like vary, then you can say that I want to vary my Node version, I want to vary my I don't know, C++ compiler version, and I want to check it for these particular cases. But for example, I don't like Node version 18 on my Ubuntu 22. And you can exclude this configuration if for some reason it doesn't work yet, or it shouldn't work, or any other reason. And you can also use this when you specify runs on specify a runner you're using. So as I told, macOS, Windows, and Ubuntu are like default runners in GitHub, and they are provided for free for you. And you can also vary the operating system. So this workflow will have 6 configurations, and you can see that GitHub automatically understood what actually varies in this configuration. That's why if something breaks, you will see like a cross with a red sign, and you will see which configuration failed exactly. And when you go to the logs, it's going to be much easier for you to understand which configuration didn't work. And I think that's it. So if you want to know more, and if you want to learn more about GitHub Actions, I highly recommend you the documentation. It's really nice. And if this is the first time you're so if you haven't used GitHub Actions before, there is a special section like Learn GitHub Actions, and there is 1.5 hour tutorial on YouTube if you prefer like video to learn something new. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ayaz, for your clear and I hope that helpful presentation.
Yeah. If you have any questions.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Вопросы?
On Russian, on English
Да,
too.
можно. Микрофон.
I understood that you love it very much,
Yeah.
these GitHub Actions, but what the pros of this technology, and can you share something experience that you don't like about?
What I don't like. Okay, let's start with the pros. So first of all, I like that I don't, as a developer, I'm not like a DevOps engineer. I don't have to do any setup, so I don't have to have my own virtual machines. I don't need to know how to deploy Jenkins to run Jenkins. And when you use, like, for example, Jenkins, most of the time you can't. Some of the systems you can't run without first deploying them, without being like at least some kind of DevOps engineer. Second thing which I really like is that there are thousands and actually tens of thousands of these small actions I showed you, like actions setup node, which will handle all the different operating systems. It will handle all the different node versions, so you don't need to create like your own shell script where you have lots of ifs. If this is Windows, then curl this repository and install it this way. But if this is like Ubuntu, and then you need to install this PPA and stuff like that, you don't need to worry about it. So most of the time, all the actions work in almost all of the operating systems. So these are really like nice features to have. What I don't like, so to be honest, I don't always like how artifacts are made in GitHub Actions. I told you actions upload artifact and actions download artifact. And for example, they do not allow you to filter artifacts which you want to download by their name. So if you have like a bunch of files you uploaded, and some of them are like heavy files, like Docker images, and some of them are just simple TXT files, you can't simply tell that I want to download all the TXT files or all the logs from previous run, and I need to like manually tell the list of things I want to download, and it's terrible. It's like growing long, but when your configuration becomes like bigger, you need to download every file one by one. So this is a thing I don't like.
That's all.
Actually, in my experience, I also had some trouble with running GitHub Actions on AH64 Linux because it's quite new. So it's still not supported in GitHub by default. So you have to have your own runner, and this is terrible because when you have your self-hosted GitHub runner, then you need to care about the cleanup because it's run like not in a separated virtual environment where it's like clean every time, but you need to take care of all the cleanup on your own, and that makes your workflows a little bit like messier because you need to like maybe Docker system prune sometimes, or sometimes there are leftovers from the previous run you need to clean up first. And this is not like this is not implemented the best way possible. And another thing about self-hosted runners, they are not really natively supported by Docker. So if you want to have like multiple runners, self-hosted runner as Docker images, you have to do a lot of work to make them work properly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the presentation, Ayaz. I never have worked with the GitHub Actions, so
Yeah.
my primary tool is Jenkins. And once in the project we had a problem, then the Jenkins workspace was overloaded, and there wasn't any more space to run the new job.
Mm-hmm.
So every new job just stacked and failed. So to overcome this, we usually just connect directly to the workspace and delete some files.
Okay.
Just clean it manually.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could do the same on the GitHub Actions, or you don't even need to do that.
So okay, I understand your question. So first of all, you don't do any cleanups here, as I told, because it's each and every time like it's a new runner. So you don't actually do any cleanups. But at the same time, so you had like your workspace full. Was it because you didn't have like enough CPU, or is it machine enough
memory?
Memory.
Didn't
Okay.
have enough memory.
So the thing is, you can actually so it's quite advanced, and I haven't used it on my own. But you can actually spin up new machines automatically in GitHub, and they will be your new runners. So if, for example, if you have like you can have like 5 machines by default, but whenever your like CPU load, like kind of CPU load is too big, you can actually make GitHub launch new instances in your cloud, in your own cloud, and they will so new runners will be created, and they will be destroyed when they are finished. So this is
okay. For example, you told there's some mechanism to share the memory between the runners, yeah?
Share the data, share the files.
Share the files. So,
Yeah.
for example, you upload too many data for those files, and runner could not hold that.
It's not stored in the runner, so it's stored in some storage system inside GitHub. So it's like that's why you can share the files between runners. So you upload, so it's like uploaded over internet to some storage like S3, I don't know, AWS S3 or something, and then you download from the other runner.
Okay, thank you.
That's why you don't have a problem where too many things are stored on the same machine, because they are stored somewhere else. Obviously, you need to have like a good internet connection for your runner. But when we deal with GitHub, everything is actually on the Microsoft Azure cloud, as far as I remember. So it's like kind of local. That's why the speeds are quite good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I probably have one question. You compare GitHub Action and old Jenkins. Let's say the new GitHub Action is better, but what if we compare GitHub Action with, for example, AWS CI/CD tools?
So to be honest, I haven't used AWS CI/CD tools, and so like the main point is not like the comparison. Is just if you already host your code on GitHub, and if you want to run. If you want to run your workflow, this is how you do it. This is how easy it is. So it's not. Sorry, I can't answer this question.
Okay, got it. Probably the next question. For example, the big advantages of Jenkins that we have opportunity to write any kind of custom plugins, because Jenkins is almost open source.
Yeah.
But what about GitHub Action? Do I have opportunity to write any, I don't know, custom?
Yeah, you can. So there is like this small piece of code which is called Actions Setup Node, and it's like completely open source project, and you can have like these small tools on your own. So you can share these small pieces of code. There is this Actions marketplace where you can search for these tools. So they are, and you can limit them to your own like project. You can limit them to.
Okay, so for example, if I would like to have Maven actions, I should go to this marketplace.
Yeah, you just search for Maven actions, and there are gonna be a ton of them which you can use easily.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
I have a question. Which way is better to run and debug GitHub Actions locally?
GitHub Actions.
Which way is better to run and debug GitHub Actions locally?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to push my branch before I tested it, so I want to run GitHub Actions.
Okay, so there is actually a nice tool. So when I tested it, it didn't work on Mac with a RH64 processor, but there is a tool, as far as I remember, it's called Ant or something like that, and it allows you to run your workflow locally, This is the first suggestion. So there is a tool which can actually take your repository, take your workflow file, and you just tell that run this workflow. So you don't even need to push this workflow or to push the changes in the repository. And there is one more suggestion. When you have Visual Studio Code with GitHub extensions installed, it helps you a lot to prevent you from some stupid errors when you didn't specify like needs property, and you use this output but you didn't specify needs property. It will tell you, please specify this needs property, otherwise we don't have these variables and so on. And using this extension, it makes like my life much easier when developing these workflows.
This extension has just only static analyzers, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a static analyzer.
Yes. And you mentioned open source tool with name ACT. I heard about
ACT, and I don't remember ACT, maybe, yeah.
Yes. But my question was, is it production ready or not?
So as I told you, I've tried it. It didn't work for me. Maybe it will work for you. So I don't have any real experience.
Okay, thank you.
It has lots of GitHub stars, but that doesn't work. It doesn't mean it works. So.
So and now I think that's it.
Yeah.
Let's thanks Ayaz. And move on to the next speaker. And the next speaker is Ivan Osipov. He's a tech lead in a rival company, and he wanna tell us about the practice evolution in distributed systems. Yes, Ivan? Okay, let me help you. Are you here, Ivan? I'm here you too, but we have some people here. Let's try. David? Включить. Ты выключил. Sorry. Okay. And now?
Раз.
Okay, it's your turn. We can applause, Ivan. So it's just a bit delay for the connection.
Okay, let's try. So hi everyone. My name is Ivan. So today I'm gonna tell you about practical evolution of a distributed system. The more accurate story is, it is like a story from nothing to medium scale. And before we start, I would like to tell you that today we gonna collaborate, so you can see QR code in the right top corner. It is a slider. You can use this bigger one to connect slider and just to test to answer on the first question, what is your English level, just to get better understanding of the audience. And I hope if it works fine, it at least for one person works fine. Yes, we will see some results. Let's wait a few more people to join. If you are too far, you can use slider.com 001122. It's like pretty nice code here. Try to vote. We see some results, and well, 16 people, great, at least 16 people. So yes, I think we can start. First of all, yeah, my English, by the way, is not perfect as well. So sometimes, you know, I can miss articles, and when I say rock, for example, that might mean a rock, that might mean to rock, or the rock, so you should check first of all and be in context. Here in this application, in this website, you can find Q&A section, so you can type your questions right there, especially if you are in online. We will try to answer all of them. And also you can vote and like upvote, downvote this question. So I hope that will be useful. In any way, we'll try to do that. So, by the way, if you speak in Chinese, Italian, or French, I don't. So let's continue. Ask in English. Here are a few of links. If you want to subscribe to read something, you can read my weekly. If you want to connect and communicate, you can use LinkedIn. If you have some questions regarding business or mentorship, you can use ivandevtower.io. I also have a channel in Telegram from junior to senior. You can find it there, or use my handle and write me directly. I'm also experimenting with YouTube. It is not too many videos there, but you might consider it worth. And of course, if you prefer Viber or WhatsApp, just Google Telegram Market Share. It's very important, and install this application, please. I'm a tech lead at Arrival. You can call me Ivan or Ivan, but please not Vano. I personally don't like this option for me. Yeah, it is a story from nothing to medium scale, but whose story? So we need an actor here, a character, and to find the best fitting name for today's talk, I thought about the most popular name in Georgia. You can try to guess what's the name, but I'll answer. If you Google it, we realize that Georgi is the most popular name in Georgia. So our actor is Georgi. Georgi is senior software engineer. His primary stack is Java, Spring Boot, and PostgreSQL. He pretty boring guy. So recently joined a new startup as a tech lead, and he is the first developer. He hired to create a brand new multi-vendor marketplace like Amazon. So multi-vendor marketplaces are the thing when multiple sellers join to sell something to multiple buyers, like not one seller, but many. And the idea here is that they are going to distribute Georgian wine around the world. So they need to do something good, at least for medium scale for today's talk. So yeah, and do not put your smartphones away, because sometimes I will use slide here. So let's just understand better. You are a lead software engineer, senior, or another technical role, or not technical person. Like that's really interesting. So just to understand how you will hate me after the talk. So yeah, great. So we see pretty interesting distribution. Yeah, great. Seems that will be worth for you in any way, at least if you understand English. So let's, sometimes it doesn't work. I'll try to click here. Yes, I'm personally not a big fan of this junior, middle, and senior grades, and I wrote an article about that. Like, and my preference here is to define growth from random way, simple problem solver, up to simple way, complex problem solver. So it is a slightly different look at the tasks that people solve. And Georgi is simple way, complex problem solver. At least he thinks that he is this guy, right? So somebody thinks that like they are senior software engineers, but he thinks that he's simple way, complex problem solver guy. So yes. Great. And by the way, you see this smartphone at the bottom right corner. It means that on the next slide, there will be question to you, so use it as a navigation. What do you think? There is nothing, literally nothing. We want to create a multi-vendor marketplace, and Georgi has just recently joined the startup. What should Georgi start from? What will be his first activities, because he joined from, like, I don't know, another company where they didn't create anything. Just try to guess. It is not necessary to be absolutely correct here, but you will see at least this distribution. I hope will be it will be interesting. So yeah, ask more questions. Exactly. Maybe this talk will be boring for you. So what can we ask? So first of all, he needs to clarify what is the real motivation that we create what we create, and clarify numbers, at least some numbers that he can collect from business guys. It is very important because it drastically defines the strategy, how he will initiate this development, and how initial version of the system will look like. Let's imagine that he understood that, okay, their long-term or mid-term goals are about 500,000 monthly active users, conversion like from monthly active user to purchase is about 30%, seller to order ratio, so every seller serves about 100 sellers, and every customer, we expect that every customer makes about 2 purchases every month. So yeah, and we understand more or less, we understand some numbers. What can we do next? I'm not talking here about specific, like clarifying requirements or something like that, but it is more or less clear. But what can we do here? Design architecture, it is an option for us. I hope that someone will answer create repository or hire more people because he is only the single developer right there. It is too much work, but okay, it's pretty hard to make it less obvious. So he is trying to make deeper dive into the domain and understands that, okay, so first of all, need to be working like clicker. Great. So first of all, he understands that marketplace functionality consists of many other, many different components. Like we need to work with order management, inventory management, shipping, so on and so forth, even much more. So he also, seems that clicker might not work. Okay. There are also more than 2 off-the-shelf solutions to launch marketplace immediately, like literally today or this week. It is so simple to start. I hope you remember that Georgi considered himself a simple solution, complex problem solver. So there are many integrations with ERP systems, CRM, CMS, and other Pokemons. And what is also important, but not for our today's talk, there are integrations with Zapier. Zapier is a great platform to integrate different systems like emails, calendars, so on and so forth. And what's interesting, there are solutions with nice REST API, webhooks, plugins, so a lot of ready-to-go things. There are a wide range of architectures, and we'll talk about them, but also there are solutions for on-premise or cloud deployments. What is also interesting is that off-the-shelf solutions actually scalable up to 1 million users. So it seems that it covers our goals, at least from our current understanding. And what is most interesting is that most of the solutions are written in PHP. But seems working. That's interesting. A lot of users, seems working. But Georgi is Java, Spring Boot, and PostgreSQL guy. So that sounds pretty complex for him. And let's try to clarify what Georgi should do next with all that stuff. He can design the target architecture. He can create a repository. He can start writing his own marketplace with Blackjack and the right tech stack, or assess the risks of available solutions. Great, great. You are right, guys. Your intuition and experience definitely helps us today, because we will think that Georgi does exactly what you tell him here, right? So he tries to assess risks and understand how they will deploy it, how will they maintain it, customize, and make it more secure, and many other questions here, just to understand what risks like introduced by these off-the-shelf solutions. It is definitely not exhaustive list of questions, but at least something to start for him. The previous one was pretty boring, so this one a bit less boring, because Georgi started watching YouTube and found this amazing video about minimal viable architecture by Randy Shope. He tells there about different stages of evolution of a particular distributed system, or like any kind of systems. So first of all, we have to clarify that idea really works, and there is a market for that. So we need to test it somehow. On the next step, we are starting, right? So we create MVP to launch our application, to find our first users, and to make this like story working in general. Until we have enough users, it's pretty hard to explain why we should scale. So on the next stage, we start scaling, and it is where usually actually distributed system appears. So at the latest stage, we have optimizing. So it means that we probably decomposed it too much. We can collapse some components and make it more efficient in general. He also found a pretty nice article by Levels FYI, where these guys explain how they created their own salary database just on Google Sheets. So they literally started from Google Sheets and scale up to 1 million users. Highly encourage you to read this article as well, pretty inspiring one. So about architecture a bit more. So he understands that there are a few options, like if we compare these off-the-shelf solutions. And for example, there is two layers kind of option. So we have marketplace engine, and under the hood, absolutely separated CMS, ERP, and some other things to manage this business. There is 3 layers architecture when they have CMS, for example, WordPress, single marketplace kind of e-commerce engine on top of CMS, and the third layer is kind of to provide multi-vendor functionality. Looks like a hell. So the third option is headless engine plus templated UI. It's pretty interesting approach. So these guys provide you API first solutions. And also they provide default user interface with an opportunity to create your UI from templates quicker. So seems that might be working for us. And single layered, it is just native marketplace engine to support many vendors at the same time. So they don't have, of course, under the hood there are some layers, but it is not such complex as, for example, the first 2 options. So, and here, the best option, it really depends on time and money and scope that we have. So, if we have money and time, and business guys are confident about market fit of this product, we really can start from headless marketplace because it's the most flexible solution like available. If we have a tight budget and hiring is limited, so we won't have bigger team. Single layered architecture works better. So it depends on what we really want to achieve. In our story, Georgi follows the first approach, so we have, because otherwise that would be too boring. So yeah, and Georgi starts from the headless engine. And yeah, and how it looks like. So minimal viable product is extremely simple. So we have our default user interface, which is available for user in browser. It doesn't require any development at the beginning because it is initially integrated with available API of headless marketplace. We have, let's say, geomazon.com as our domain, and we resolve this API, IP, like where can we find this stuff. And under the hood, oh my God, it is a virtual machine. So virtual machine with Docker Compose, like we all like this stuff. It is deployed as Docker containers, right? So it is pretty cloud native, but not fully. It is a reverse proxy at the beginning, as a gateway to our system. It also serves statics. It has a marketplace headless engine under the hood, and it has database. Like we don't know which one, but some database, high likely relational one. So yeah, that works. And what do you think? Is this a distributed system or not really? Yeah, let's try to vote and understand what do you think. Yeah, we have a few answers for no and yes. People are not sure. You can re-vote, by the way. Yeah, okay, so the most part of the audience thinks that it is not a distributed system. Probably yes, but technically, if we look at Wikipedia, we will see that a distributed system is a system whose components are located on different networked computers. So seems we are right that our components, for example, static server is like on the same component, on the same virtual machine, so it is not distributed. But when it is delivered to our browser, technically it is another network computer that will communicate with our one, right? So if we don't think about our like front end, separated front end as about distributed components, we might end with a lot of problems. For example, we can forget to do retries, like at least retries, and every network issue will fail our application since the beginning. But let's consider this architecture as not a distributed system. So what do you think? How long would it take to implement? So like we need to deliver this solution, and how much time would it take? What do you think? It is about 2 weeks, less than 1 month, 3, 6, or even bigger. For me, it is extremely interesting. Yes, great. Okay, estimation. I'm sure a lot of lead engineers right there. So they are not sure that it will be 2 weeks. Yeah, great. So at least, okay, a few people think that it will take more than 6 months. Like maybe we are not sure about like how Georgi really works. Maybe he's a pretty lazy guy, and it will really take 6+ months. It depends, right? So we'll call him high performer, right, or low performer. So the most part of audience answered less than 3 months. I had this similar feeling, and what is interesting at this stage, what benefits we have? Less than for 3 months, we got like unblocked business, right? So we can sell some products and try to collect our users and test this marketplace idea in more or less real world. We can test some ideas having this marketplace. We can collect feedback from our users, right? So it is probably the most valuable stuff from all this exercise. And no custom code, no custom issues, right? So we haven't wrote anything like manually, except Docker compose files or something else, but not business code, right? What nuances we have? Scalability here is a challenge. I hope you see it because it's a single virtual machine. High availability is not guaranteed here, definitely. And we received the first feedback. One of users tell us that the marketplace works too slow, right? So seems he is not happy. What might be the best option for us further? If the talk would be slightly longer, I would give you a chance to vote, but today we see that Georgi decided to measure more, to understand what is exactly slow right there. So he, for frontend, he chose the mixed panel. There are different solutions here, but just to collect events from frontend, right? And here at Prometheus plus Grafana, I hope that initially he selected Marketplace Headless Engine, which supports like providing his metrics in this way. It is still the same architecture, but at least observable. It's not really clear why he haven't started from like this part, but now there is a motivation. And what we have next, he understood that there are some users from United States, some users from Asia, and there is different latency. And actually, marketplace like maybe works fine, but latency somehow impacts our application. So. Okay, so latency is too high. Sometimes, by the way, we recognize that our server, which serves statics, restarts. But fortunately, we added restart always, and our Docker Compose is fine with that. So, and great front-end engineers added retries in their default user interface. So our users haven't really seen these problems. So it worked slowly from their perspective, just because we waited for these restarts, and retries helped us to restore the connection. And Georgi heard that CDN might help in such situations, so he is trying to isolate his server in Georgia. I'm not really sure why he decided to choose a server in Georgia, but probably because it's Georgian wine and the business wanted to deliver something from Georgia. So yes, and in his case, for example, Cloudflare provides a CDN solution, which means content delivery network, and we kind of modify DNS. We provide CDN, so not we, Cloudflare provides CDN. It plays a role of facade for our system, and even if our origin server was impacted, we can isolate these problems, and Cloudflare will serve all these statics like downloading activities. So if you want to get more understanding how CDN works, I highly encourage you to Google at least CDN word, but also Anycast and Internet Exchange Point. So that's pretty interesting and worth reading. Highly recommend you to spend some time on that. So we improved our architecture, right? So we added CDN right there. We modified DNS. So now our front end is not able to connect directly to our virtual machine, but rather to CDN. So seems at least distributed, right? Content distributed, network seems distributed. So yes, and on the next step, when my clicker starts working, not today. Yeah, on the next request, we got feature request. This is our vendor. We haven't ever seen his face, but it is our vendor. So, and it is our customer, right? So he wanted, or she, we are not sure here, wanted to get these bottles of wine because we still create marketplace for Georgian wine. And there is a marketplace for that. But business guys got an idea that we can add marketers there, right? We can find freelancers who want to help our vendors, and vendors will request them for help. They will provide improvements for product definitions, so and help to sell it better and better. Georgi definitely needs a vacation, but that's not great time for that. So our marketplace functionality actually extending, and it seems that was initially we choose the right direction because we had some more, resources for that, and we provide marketing user interface, so it is already custom code. So we need to hire here at least one developer, front-end developer, because Georgi's user interfaces are not perfect, as well as any other Java developer can provide. So, and also we added marketing backend right there with its own database. Looks great. Looks great. One new service, and I'm not sure that it makes sense to ask here is a distributed system or not, but now we have even asynchronous communication because marketplace engine can provide webhooks which will inform our marketing backend about some new products, and marketing backend will somehow handle it and work and make life of marketers better. But what database should we choose here, right there under marketplace backend? I'm sure that there are different options for us here, and I'm not sure that, unfortunately I don't have voting here, but next time, guys. So Georgi knows Occam's razor means pluralitas non est ponenda sine necessitete, right? Latin. He doesn't know English, so he Googles what it means exactly, and plurality should not be posited without necessity. Still weird stuff. So, okay, keep it simple, tells us Urban Dictionary. So Georgi decided to not introduce one more database. Previous one was already a relational one, and it covers our needs. He doesn't want to increase technical diversity there. So because at least they have pretty small team, right? So at least Georgi and the front-end guy, so not so many people to support it. But yeah. And at this stage, our product state is we have relatively small team, and it costs not too small, like approximately 37,000 per month. It includes salaries, toolings, hostings, like all the things that to support our product development. Monthly active users is already 842. Please don't ask me why 842. And earnings are about $252 per month. Not too many, right? So development cost, business profits seems perspective, but guys from business really want to see charts, right? They cannot trust in this just pure absolute numbers. They need to see what is our potential. And look, since our marketing release, we started increasing monthly active users, right? So seems that we changed something. We introduced a game changer right there. And what will be next? They will extrapolate it, right? And it will be something amazing soon. So seems it time to scale, right? Nobody's sure what will happen later. Maybe we will get big troubles there. So yeah, and can you see it? Like on the next slide, we will have a question. So next slide. What should be the next step since they expect scaling issues? Because Georgi explained, guys, we started really quickly. It won't scale in any way. So should we create a Kubernetes cluster or wait? Or, that's a great question. When I edited it, I was not sure, maybe it will be the most popular. And wait, it is an option. Hire an architect, pretty nice option, by the way. Georgi can get a new title, right? So we can separate hosting for stateful and stateless components. That's interesting because Georgi has its own decision, right? So you can, tell him, guy, you need to wait, right? But he will separate hosting, right? So he understands the difference between stateful and stateless components. So from his understanding, scalability is much harder when you have stateful components. And if you store on your backend your session data, you do not separate it from your backend, it's much harder to scale because pretty often users become bound to your particular instances. It is called sticky sessions. Like a lot of different problems appear when you have mixed like everything in one place. So stateful is like it is an approach that Georgi understands that they need to separate stateless and stateful components as much as possible. So Georgi still is able to Google, right? So he has his 2 hands and 2 eyes, at least 2. So he knows that 12-factor application is great. They call it methodology defined by Heroku guys, as far as I understand, that defines that like what properties you should follow to get like the better software as a service. And one of statements there is that you should separate your stateful and stateless components. Again, pretty worth reading. If you missed it before, highly recommend you to open this site. So what's next? He extracts these stateful components. We moved Prometheus. For some reason, he started from like deployment everything on this virtual machine because probably this marketplace provided Docker Compose to launch it immediately. So it looked pretty, simple. So he extracted stateful components, database, like metrics, so on and so forth, metrics management, so on and so forth. He had a Prometheus agent just to export metrics to the cloud. And now it seems he can scale this somehow, right? So he tries to scale it up to 3, right? 3 instances. I'm not sure it is a good idea. He has the same feeling, and yeah, they got a bug. So they hired one more middle backend engineer because they need more hands to survive, right? And his first feature was to add auto marketing suggestions for products. It means that when a new product appears, our marketing backend can generate some suggestions like automatically for our vendors. And we see that there are duplicated suggestions. That's a problem, and I won't ask you why, because Georgi spent some time and understood that they have now more than one instance, and their jobs work concurrently, and they do not control it in any way. And he missed it, of course, because code review, who like read code reviews, right? So he was sure for some reason about this guy. So in Java world, and not only there are pretty popular solutions to avoid this problem. So he chose like the most, I would say the simplest one. It is shadlock. So he locked job execution to avoid concurrency here, but I highly recommend you to look at job runner as well. It is a pretty nice job management for Java applications. If your stack is Spring Boot, they have starter for that, and they also have dashboard, so you can watch what is going on right there. So yeah, but you have to be careful about their like something. We'll discuss it later. Yeah, and we try to simplify architecture as well, right? So they try to move out statics from their reverse proxy to separate this responsibility. And it was relatively simple to do, just to put it on S3 to store it separately, right? So now it seems that it is pretty simple to wrap it somehow to scale, and they trying to analyze what will going on if we try to move to fancy Kubernetes stuff, like because currently we have virtual machines that not so fancy. And what we have here, instead of reverse proxy, they have ingresses, right? So they provide different controllers, so on and so forth. So we can serve the same functionality with different abstraction. We already have our components as Docker containers, so it is extremely simple to deliver to Kubernetes cluster here. And at the same time, it requires to define a bit more configuration, but in general seems feasible. Prometheus engine can be introduced with Kubernetes operators, so many things are already implemented, but also we have to not forget about external configuration. So like we have to configure our applications, and currently they are on the single virtual machine, but it's not so hard to configure. Think about secrets, think about service discovery, how we will find our components, and how to load balance traffic between our systems. And yeah, they try to wrap it into Kubernetes components. And what they got here, just relatively, simple thing. I removed from this schema metric stuff. So we wrapped our components into pods, kind of delivery unit from Kubernetes. We still have separated managed database. We have ingress, which helps us to serve incoming traffic. So in general, looks good. It is all wrapped into one namespace and delivered to, again, managed cluster. For example, EKS, like it doesn't matter really here. So it was pretty timely decision, because now they can scale their components independently, just understanding from their monitoring where they have more or less traffic, or even use autoscaler, right? So a lot of nice opportunities, but not so working clicker. Yes. They recognize that our product events are forwarded to subscribed clients, so it is our marketer backend. And since we have truly distributed system, right? So we, on the slide, we see that we have different pods, so they can be delivered to different to different nodes. So it becomes truly distributed system, and it breaks our SLAs, because our marketer guys expected our marketing backend should generate suggestions. No, another story. So we have a counter in marketer's user interface, and it should be updated within 5 minutes. But because our off-the-shelf solution is not configurable in like any way, we understand that our off-the-shelf solution will retry only like every day this webhook that should deliver this event to our marketer backend. And what happens, it tries to deliver from like one component to another one using all the stuff from Kubernetes, like services, so on and so forth, event to another component. If it fails, it tries again, but in one day, right? So it violates our expectations. And what can we do here? let's try to vote. What can we do here? What would you choose in this situation? Maybe something else. If something else, vote for no idea, because I don't have this option. We can use service mesh. We can rewrite marketplace from the scratch, right? Looks pretty nice option, because we hate off-the-shelf solutions. We can create an isolation layer. Sounds interesting, or no idea, and like I understand you. Well, pretty interesting. Yeah, we can create an isolation layer here, and yeah, you can see that I don't have here wait, right? So we sometimes when we receive bugs, we can wait and they will just disappear, but not in this case. We create an isolation layer, right? So it is one of ideas how we can fix it. Is we can use like service mesh concept. We can provide sidecar in the same pod of our marketplace engine. It will receive our events, but retries will be managed by sidecar, and in this case it will retry more like frequently than initial marketplace, and this would help us to isolate. Not to isolate, to manage this particular requirement. But at the same time, it introduces a bit more infrastructural complexity, and at the same time, we understand that we, in any way, will need to replace this stuff later, right? So maybe we should rewrite it right now, or not. I'm not sure, but Georgi decides to follow. Just a second. Follow another way. He understands that he needs to avoid network issues, at least network issues. So he provides, it's not really visible here, marketplace engine incubator. So it is a service which will collect all migrated logic from marketplace engine into like itself, and eventually, we can move there all the logic which was initially provided by marketplace headless engine, just because we are not sure about like how many more problems we will see later with this engine. So it is a kind of isolation because other components can communicate with it, and also it can adapt our architecture to more kind of flexible way. We can use fancy message brokers like, right? So we try to deliver events there, and marketplace, marketers backend receives this events. So nobody knows about real marketplace engine until we rewrite frontend, right? So we would need to modify frontend as well. It will take some time to communicate directly through this customizable incubator. And that's interesting because we do not use here plugins, which could be written in PHP, right? So Georgi was a big fan of PHP, as we remember. So, and we just interact via API and do as much as possible through API. So it seems that we can avoid our problem here, but yeah, but another bug again. Marketing backend receives an event from message broker about created product, but engine incubator responds 404 when you request this product, right? So sounds weird. And what should we do? Unfortunately, on this talk we are pretty limited, so you will know later, not today. Yeah, and I have a few key takeaways for you. So first of all, keep it simple, at least if it is possible according to your particular business case. Try to isolate risky parts. And of course, if you can't improve it, you can't improve it if you can't measure it. So try to observe all your architecture, even if it is not so distributed, but it is important to establish the right infrastructure since the beginning. Research, assess risks, and try. So it is one of great options to move further. And the more complex the app, the more resources you would need. Yes, and I would like to ask you probably the last question on this talk is if we would proceed, what would be the option, right? So how they migrated from off-the-shelf solution like fully, how they evolved quicker with federated GraphQL API gateway, right? Sounds interesting, by the way. How they adopted MongoDB instead of RDBMS, how they implemented business process updates, please vote. How they worked on fault tolerance here, and how they implemented all of them. How they implemented hexagonal architecture for Spring Boot. Nobody here loves Spring Boot, I see. So yeah, and how they implemented auth. Thank you. Yes, it was the last option here. Well, yes, I'm trying to collect these statistics just to understand what would be the most interesting for you later. So please vote if you really want to be heard here. Yes, and that's it for today. Here are my like contact details. You can write me everywhere or read. And I have a slide for questions. So we don't have anything here. So, okay, guys from translation, you are so lazy today. So yeah, we can stop here and ask.
Sounds
questions.
like a cliffhanger here.
Oh, yes.
So thanks, Ivan. It was really interesting and interactive and fun as I asked you, but not so short as I asked you. And how are you guys? Don't you have any power to the questions?
Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I enjoyed that, and I don't really have a cool particular question, but I just was wondering what's the difference between sidecar and message broker in that exactly case. From my perspective, the sidecar would require less, how you can say, code refactoring in that case. So it would be much simpler than introducing a new message broker. What do you think?
Let me return to this slide. And yes, of course. First of all, I would say that we used here message broker just because we already can customize our development. We can provide custom development on top of marketplace headless engine. So technically, this component might work and implement the same logic as sidecar, but what's the big advantage here? We understand that sidecar would not solve all our problems, high likely, and we in any way someday will need to customize our solution. And of course, this one will, in the previous schema, this one will be limitation here because of course we can fix retry issues, any kind of resilience issues, but at the same time we cannot customize, for example, business logic here. So it is a big problem, and one of topics for another talk. What's also important, it provides us an opportunity. This way provides us an opportunity smoothly migrate from off-the-shelf solution, because now we have proof from the business that it works. They saw some money, right? So now we have a component where we can deliver it, and it can start growing as a small monolith, right? To be decomposed later. Again, it is a question for another talk. But yeah, it is just much. Long story short, it provides more opportunities to migrate from marketplace engine smoother later when we understand that we reach limits.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Got that.
Thank you for the question.
Any questions? Put your hands up if you want. So I think it's clear. And we are looking forward for the continuing the Georgi's story later. And now just thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, guys.
And let's move to the next speaker. I think it will be more simple than all the previous. because Dmitry Pozdnyakov, he is an ex-product manager in the Google, and he want to tell us about the marketing features in the Google, as I understood, or something kind of that. Let me help you to put the micro.
Hello.
Let's applause. Next speaker, yeah. Thank you.
Test. All right. Hi, hello everyone. My name is Dmitry, and I actually have a marketing background. So it will be interesting to talk to developers and share my marketing experience, which I later on used in Google to become a product manager. And the topic of today's discussion would be product development fueled by marketing, and why I think marketing people should take place more in product development and vice versa, why product development people have to participate in marketing experiences of our users. So this is about me. My academic experience is more about marketing research. So I was always excited about finding out what are the needs actually of the people, of the customers, of the users. And I was in a luxury segment first and working with such brands as Cartier and Richemont, basically selling products which don't really require a lot of advertisement. In Google, I was an advertisement consultant for different businesses, so I was exposed to many different kinds of businesses. And after that, I was responsible globally for the payment system within Google in order to basically make advertisement products available across the countries, across the currencies, bills, and laws. So that's about me. Basically, I think this is a motto of my career, to make products that require no marketing. So despite of having a marketing background, I'm actually excited of finding what are the things that people need instead of other things. You can see it's a less technical presentation than the previous one, because I want to ask you by raising your hands. So who of you are actually coders, engineers who work with code daily? Can you raise your hands? All right. Any project managers, marketing people here, raise your hands. Okay, one person. Okay. What about industries? Do you work with mobile apps? If yes, please raise your hand. 2 people. Websites? 3 people. Software as a service? Okay, the rest, who are you? Okay. Okay, let's say you're unresponsive audience. You can actually join the Telegram chat, which I created just for this presentation, if you really need to write a question later, or if you are online and you want to ask a question. It's time to go to Telegram and maybe check out, ask your questions, and we'll see. All right. So this is about agenda. I think I wanted to share my experience in the form of a framework which you hopefully can apply to your day-to-day jobs, into feature prioritizations, or deciding which products to launch, or even deciding on which works not to work, because this is quite an important part of the developer. From my experience as a marketing consultant, I think like a lot of marketing today is like in this meme, if you've never seen it. So imagine a user minding his own business, and then smash, the brick is smashed in his window, and the communication is like this: do you need a window repair? So the problem is not only with marketing, not just the advertisement which says, hey, you need this, you need this, you need this, but it's also from the developer side. The problem here, from the developer problem, when you build a solution to a certain problem, we tend to make sure that this problem is really big, So because of this kind of tendency, we build products which we then impose on our customers in marketing, in budgeting, in our revenue models, and the ways users basically experience our digital things that we build. So how can we actually try to avoid this backstabbing, and how can we enforce healthy habits for the users and for the users and for the consumers? I think we, as product managers, marketers, designers, whoever we are responsible for the healthy habits of our users. And there are two aspects to that. First, we need to build products that enable healthy behavior. But there's a second aspect to that. Let's say you've built a good product, you are testing it, and you see that your product is misused. We are, as creators, responsible for making sure that we also fight those unhealthy behaviors in our product. Because if those unhealthy behaviors, if product is misused, ultimately the users and clients will help both the products and the developers and pretty much everyone associated with that. We'll talk about this a little bit later. So as a basis of my sharing of experience, I wanted to use the hooked model, which is quite a popular book written by Nir Eyal. And I was wondering if any of you has ever read this book. If yes, please raise your hand. All right, none of you. That's great. I think when you build a digital product, no matter what kind of product you're building, you really have to make sure that your product is used daily. No one wants to build a product which is never used or used once just on a Happy New Year situation. So in order to build products which are used daily, regularly with the same users, we need to build habit-forming products. And I'll share the framework a little bit and share my cases and examples a little bit as well. So this is a framework. It's pretty easy. Business, framework, not database. So basically, the model looks pretty simple. There are 4 steps to make sure that the product which you use is a good habit-forming product. And the first one is a trigger stage. So when you build a product, you need to understand what are the triggers within the consumer's uncomfortable emotional states or situations which customer faces, which basically makes him find the simplest behavior in order to anticipate the reward. What is the reward, and how his actions on your platform, website, solution makes the platform better every time. I will just illustrate it a little bit easier. If you took a Google search, the easiest trigger to use Google is like, you face a situation and you need information. So my internal trigger is like, I need information. The simplest action is to Google it. The reward would be, all right, I have 50 websites to choose from, and I spend most of my time on one of them. So next time someone Googles the same question, we make sure that this site is prioritized because previous users actually enjoyed it this way. So this is about hooked model, and this is very relevant for mobile applications, for websites. For internal softwares, it may be a bit more tricky, but this is pretty universal, and I will share my project management experience as well, how we can even apply in feature prioritization as well. So let's talk stage by stage and talk about trigger stage. So in order to build solutions which are used daily on a regular basis by users, we first of all have to think about eternal solutions, like need for information, need for connection, need to track projects, whatever it is. But what is also important is a healthy habit, which I mentioned in the beginning. It's not just only about the solution, but also enforcing a healthy habit. And I want to share some examples of unhealthy habit, which actually makes me as a user hate some certain services. For example, I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram, to be honest. I don't know if you do. But for example, I do have an unhealthy habit of checking Instagram whenever I am alone. So when I'm alone, I check what's going on online, what is happening there. And the problem with this, Instagram was not built to cure loneliness. Instagram was built to actually share greatest moments. And so there's an unhealthy habit in using Instagram. Using it unhealthily to solve absolutely different problem. And I think we as developers, as user experience, need to make sure that users are channeled, that marketers are provided with information that certain age groups, for example, abuses our services and spend 3 hours on Instagram per day. Maybe we can do something better to make sure that those people don't only hate Instagram, but people in general. So yeah, think about eternal solution and health habits. Make sure that you create a loop which associates your product with a frequency habit. All right. when we talk about internal triggers, there are basically two types of triggers, like external ones, situations, events, holidays, click here, buy now, and things like that. And solutions to those external triggers work well, but over time, users do not actually need to use your product any time again. So really, products which remain over years, over time, are built on internal triggers, and we will talk about my specific experience as a product manager in one of the examples. Action. When we talk about action stage, it's really hard to understand sometimes how to prioritize things, which things to take care of and which things to drop. And I think like one of the biggest challenges which I faced as a product manager is trying to understand like what is the simplest anticipation of reward. Should I improve old processes, or is it time to build something new? Is it time like to abandon this backlog and forget about it and create something new? Or is it time to actually satisfy the needs of whoever your teammates are and improve something old? And I think, at least from my experience as a product manager, it's really not clear when the old solutions become too difficult to maintain. So really, when you think about the timing of a transition from old systems to new systems, the timing is not always like one dot in a timeline. It is usually a time frame, and many systems coexist, so you sometimes have to relate to both systems in order to satisfy customers or users. Reward. I want to share a case study, and I will ask a question to you. How would you approach this problem if you were a product manager? So as a product manager, I was responsible globally for the payment system. And one of the problems which happens with the payment system is when accounts are suspended, basically sellers are quite unhappy because they sold the solution and the client didn't pay the bill. And in the end of the day, basically, accounts suspended and sellers are unhappy. So as a product manager, what sellers want is they say, hey, I want to get notified whenever account is blocked. I want to have control about the situation. I want to reach out to the client. I want to make sure that they pay the bills because my revenue depends on it. And this is the wants that they ask. And in order to fulfill this want, they ask actually to improve the dashboard which we had to basically notify them by email about things. But unfortunately, there was no easy solution for what they asked. So in a situation when there's no easy solution for a request like this, what do you think actually is needed for sellers in this situation? I will pause here and I will ask for your input and drink some water in order to give you time to process. Like, what is the difference between wants and needs when sellers stop receiving revenue? I will simplify the question. Do you think sellers want to take care of the bills of the users?
No, it's too much work.
Yeah, it's true. So sometimes when you think about what we want, it's really hard to understand the need. But if you look at this problem from the perspective of the framework, all these wants that have been requested are external triggers. None of them is saying like, I want to take care of the bills of my client. All of those are external triggers. So, and all of those requests anticipate the improvement of the old dashboard which doesn't work. So if you take a step back as a product manager or a developer, you actually have to ask the question, is it a healthy habit for a seller to think about the bills of the customer? And the answer will be more easy to you. No, it's not. So the healthier habit is, so basically, we didn't implement this solution which was asked, but it was a lot of pushback back and forth. Instead, with the same product team, we actually implemented a solution where service team was allowed to reach out to client directly, and the problem resolved itself. So basically, you never know when and how exactly the solution will come, but if you see that this is an unhealthy habit which requires a lot of effort and prioritization from product team, from development or UX teams, you should deprioritize it as much as possible. All right. And I wanted to share a few experiences when I consulted many companies which advertise with Google. I think on the investment stage, there's a lot of situations where product is built and the advertisement system is absolutely not integrated with the solution which was built. For example, you've built a mobile app or you've built a website and you do not consider the way your product is actually advertised. And this causes a lot of problem. So 20 years ago, the consumer journey was pretty simple. You go to the shop, you see the options, and you take and you purchase it. Today in online world, it's really hard to understand the customer journey. So people learn online on social media, research in the Yandex Market, evaluate through the emails, and purchase through e-commerce. So the journey is really complex, and believe me, every marketing department of every tech company in Russia, which I work with, is basically very puzzled to understand the customer journey. And if you as a developer have built the product which allows you to track those things, this is a very valuable information for marketing department. This is valuable information to make your product used by many people. And so what I invite you to do is when you build those solutions, think about how your product is advertised. For example, you build a mobile app and you think between login information as an email or as a Facebook login. Technically, Facebook login is easier, but if all of your communication, marketing, and promotion is logged into email ID, basically maybe it makes sense to ask those questions to the marketing department, or if you don't have yet marketing department, at least have a discussion within a team about how people will learn about your product. All right. I think that is it. Yeah, that's pretty quick. So I wanted to share a few insights about product management in Google. And spoiler alert, there's no rocket science. When as a product manager, when you work on feature prioritization, there are 2 steps basically in order to prioritize this or another feature request. First stage is a business requirement document. So me as a product manager, I gather all the wants of the users, of the sellers, support specialists, finance and collection teams, and I create a business requirement documents where I say, hey, you know, those teams need those things in business terms. This is the amount of revenue affected, this is the amount of cases affected, this is the amount of users daily affected. So basically you create a business case, and after that over here happens a bargaining process where with the tech leads you basically try to understand whether or not 5 different business requirement documents become 1 product requirement documents, or each of the business requirement requires separate solution. So I think it's good to have open discussions between those teams, between business and tech teams. And as in my example with the sellers, you don't always know how to address certain wants. So in this bargaining situation between tech and business leaders, I think it's really important to raise questions whether or not we want to satisfy the need other way and create something new, which will probably take like a couple more years to implement. In terms of project work, I've seen many projects which were started, but I think like if there was no weekly meeting with all the stakeholders, this project will never fly, even if people promised you. So I think regular attendance and regular tracking of your weekly meetings on the project is everything is used. I was quite surprised that there was no Scrum or super strict Agile methodology used or anything like that. I think weekly adherence, regular stakeholder meetings really help to brew this process of transforming business wants to product needs and delivering the product that used. So as a quick summary of my presentation, I want to ask you to think about the consumer habits, healthy habits. How can you build products to enforce healthy habits? But also, if you've built a product and users misuse it, how can you make users healthier with your experience? Thank you for your time, and I think it's time for questions.
Okay. Anybody want to answer or ask? So, raise your hands. Dima, I think it was clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, guys, it's enough for today. Thank you for joining us time to time. I see your faces here. And okay, thank you. It's enough. If you have an energy to after party, tell me about that. Every time that guys from the small talk bar are waiting for us, but last time guys said to me that